and welcome to Grossly Competent, the learning, development, and adulting podcast that doesn't claim to be pretty. Ugh, no, but we will happily pretend to be slightly competent. I am your host, Steve Council, and I'm joined by my co-host, a man voted most likely to be confused with a blobfish, Mr. Patrick Ayleshire.
Blobfish. That's great.
I learned about those on Octonauts. There you go.
Well, I'd prefer not to fumble over my words and talk like I have marbles in my mouth this week. So I'll just add that it's truly nice to be in your presence. You mask-wearing, hot sauce-loving uggo.
Wow. Right you are, Mr. Patrick. Well, folks, we've got a lot of great things to talk about this week, and we're ready to do this for your listening pleasure. But first, we must know, Mr. Patrick, who is our sponsor of the week.
This episode is brought to you by Screen Time You Don't Want to Check. You already know. You just don't need confirmation. Screen time. Awareness without action.
Wow. Thanks, big screen time you don't want to check. You know, I definitely feel like I don't want to check that. Something about like the last week, I don't know why, but I felt like I have perused social media way more than I normally do. I don't know why, but you're right. I don't want to check my screen time. Do you feel like you're pretty good about that?
You know, it's funny that you actually asked that, because I was about to just share that this sponsor this week especially is near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
I am not making this up, listeners. Over the last 3 weeks or so, I have limited or essentially regulated my screen time over 75% less than what I had been doing on an average week. So
that's awesome.
It wasn't just something I did on my own. I had a little help. I read a book called Stolen Focus, which essentially is about
that. Yeah.
Great book. Author Johann Hari. We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, please do.
Really, really, I loved it. I got a lot out of it. It was essentially about how, as human beings, we have been losing our focus over the years. And it's not just about technology and social media. I mean, that's a big share of the book, or just how can we try to get some of that focus back, and some really good strategies and a lot of good research went into this book, talking to all these experts that often about their thoughts and beliefs on how we are losing our focus. And again, a lot of it was on kind of the technology, and especially the addiction that these apps create. And that was something that's really bothered me at times, where you go down the rabbit hole, or the death scroll, the doom scrolling. And like, I really, not to go on too much of a tangent, but I really want to get my focus back to really improve my reading, book reading, anything so I'm not just getting distracted every 3 minutes because I need to go check something, or just can't focus on a nonfiction book. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool to have that sponsor show up kind of out of the blue.
Yeah, that was really nice of them. I will admit, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, oh, I should be a dick and pretend I wasn't paying attention because I wasn't focused. But everything you said, like, no, this is actually like totally valid and like a serious topic. So I'm not going to demean that. So I do genuinely appreciate that. And I would love to have us put that in the show notes, because that's a book I would definitely check out. Maybe we do an episode on it in the future or something. So that's awesome.
What were you saying?
Yeah. Okay.
There it is. Oh, I would agree. Yes. We could talk about our lack of, well, that could be, and this is a serious idea, lack of focus during training. How do you, as a facilitator, make sure that the audience is, fully engaged in the content?
Public humiliation.
Oh,
come on. Really? Like, are we even having this talk? Like, come on. No, I do think that, okay, look at this. We're just brainstorming live, baby. Like, this is the goods. This is what I'm talking about. Speaking of episodes and topics and whatnot, um, this past week, so the episode that we recently released, so listeners, you can call it vain, whatever you want, but Patrick and I do listen back to our own episodes because we want to make sure that like the audio sounds correct or just whatever. It's not because we just love listening to our voices, but there's like an actual reason behind it. And when we were talking about PowerPoint, we were talking about presentations last week. So if you're joining us for the first time this week, I highly recommend just jump backwards an episode when you have the opportunity. It's a great one. It was completely Patrick's idea, so it has to be better than any of them that I've come up with. But we were talking about PowerPoint as a visual aid. And I'm so kind of mad at myself that I forgot about a very specific instance. We were talking in the episode last week about how PowerPoint is a visual aid. It is meant to aid a presentation. It is not the presentation. The facilitator, the speaker, is the one that's giving the presentation. And it reminded me of when I was working with somebody. He was an up-and-coming leader, great guy. He's in leadership right now. He's amazing, just a fantastic dude. Hates public speaking, just terrified of it. Absolutely terrified of public speaking. So when I was working with him on like, this is how you build a PowerPoint and this is how you try to, articulate on these different topics. When he originally gave me something, it kind of hit all the things we talked about last week, like the don'ts of what you should not do. And I'm like, buddy, they're going to be paying attention to that and not you. And without missing a beat, he just blurts out, yeah, that's what I want. Like, I don't want them to look at me. Can they just read this? That would be great. And I've just always really appreciated that candor.
I really like this guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. Miguel, if you're listening, you are awesome.
But I too know some really great workers and fellow employees who are really good at their jobs, but speaking in front of people is not their strong suit.
Yeah.
I can be understanding of that. Of course, it's part of their job. They need to practice.
Absolutely.
I've said this before, but a poor speaker is super distracting as an audience member. And I think it can take away from the overall presentation.
Sure.
So as strong as the information may be, all the ums and uhs do take away from the content. But that doesn't mean that someone that currently does that can't improve. It has to go along with practice and getting in the habit of maybe taking those pauses and practicing out loud in the mirror, whatever you need to do. Record yourself if you have to.
Yeah.
It does sound terrifying, but just getting in the habit of not having all those filler words. And that's as a facilitator to get used to.
I'm guilty. I know I still use the ahs and ums from time to time. Feel like it's not as intense, perhaps, but they still exist, and I'm willing to accept that bit of defeat. I did take some advice from our last episode, though.
Okay.
And specifically when we were talking about handouts. One of the things you mentioned was making sure that if you have a handout that it's actually legible, like people can read it. And normally I would do the stereotypical, when you print off a PowerPoint, it's the three slides, to the left with the lines on the right so people can write their notes. Based off of the feedback we had from last week, I decided I'm going to do the two large slides on a piece of paper, front, back, whatever. I didn't have a single person say a word. And as I was kind of walking around the room when there was like time for them to write notes, what did they do? They adapted. They wrote in like the margins, or they wrote on the slide itself, like circles and pointing and all. I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we should be doing. So I am totally sold. It was awesome. I'd never thought to do that. So I appreciated that advice. Thank you. So just kind of curious with you, Patrick, have you had an opportunity to make any of those adjustments or change your style or your process since the last chat?
That is very awesome news, Steve. I think the reason and again, I'm guilty of this too, but so it'll be interesting to see when I am able to do exactly what you just did with printing the 2 slides per page. They probably weren't complaining because they could actually see what was on their paper. So, when it's 3 slides per page, you can't even read probably this.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Yeah.
So, well, I have not had an opportunity to get in front of the audience this last week. I did spend a good amount of time revamping a PowerPoint presentation, and I was heeding the advice and limited each slide to under 10 words.
Nice.
I heavily increased the font size, and I moved everything down that I thought was still vital down into the presenter notes section.
Oh, sure. Nice.
Why do the attendees need to, I know the content. So as long as I know the content, again, a few words here and there, and then you can expand on it. If you have to carry, and I think it's okay as a facilitator to carry around a printed packet of the slides too. So you can pay it. I do that quite a bit. So if you've got your notes on there, then it's okay. It's, it can be a kind of a comfort thing too. I feel really good about kind of creating that. And I look forward to facilitating the presentation in the next few weeks or months, and plan to do that same revamp with other presentations that we have in our catalog too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you had that opportunity to do that. That's really cool, man. Yeah, even though we're the ones talking about this stuff, we still learn from it. We can grow and adapt. It's never just one and done, folks. It's a constant refinement. Oh, this is new. This is different. This is something I can implement. This will improve. And that's awesome, man. I'm really happy to hear that.
And Steve, it goes exactly what we were talking about on a previous episode, how typically, maybe not always, but typically learning and development folks are the last to get learning and development opportunities.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
I mentioned this on a previous episode, but my boss this year in our early conversations was like, I want you to go take training, not because you suck, but he's newer to the department, but he told our team, it's debatable.
Jury's out. Mm-hmm.
New to our learning development team at the start of this year. And he said, it's so important for us as learning development folks to be able to get those continuous learning opportunities, because we're always the ones doing the training. We never get the training. So I'm pretty pumped about that.
That's awesome. I think for those of you that maybe have smaller budgets where you work, an excellent way to get that additional training without it feeling like actual training is, and you're probably going to hate me for saying this, but networking. Like just meeting with people that are in your industry, within your area, just meet with them. Grab a cup of coffee, for crying out loud. Spend an hour to an hour and a half just chatting. You can spend the first half an hour just BSing, like just talk about whatever, and eventually get the conversation into like, hey, so I'm working on this. What do you think? That you learn so much just from those small interactions, almost more so than I would dare say than some $500 or $1,000 course you take in the matter of a day. Like, why? I didn't need that. I can just talk to somebody, get their perspective, their best practices. I can share mine. We can kind of workshop things and just go from there. Heck yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Well, Steve, I'm really glad you were able to incorporate some of those suggestions from last week, and hope other L&D practitioner listeners out there were able to do the same. But if not, maybe I can send an email out about it. How about that, Steve?
Yeah. My favorite. Yep. This should have been an email, right? So I suppose what you're saying, Mr. Patrick, is you would like to dive into our topic.
Sure. Why not? Let's do it.
So I was on an executive forum yesterday with the great Julie Menden. If you're not familiar, you can look her up. I'll put something in the show notes for you. She does these monthly breakout sessions where she'll have a specific topic in either learning and development or leadership of some kind. It's not just learning and development. It's actually probably 90% leadership. And she'll bring up some real challenge or something like that. Well, yesterday was interesting. She ran what were called mastermind sessions, which the group was broken up into like smaller breakouts. Each of us got 4 minutes to introduce ourselves. And one thing that there was a struggle of ours. And then after that 4 minutes, the remaining group got 4 minutes to ask clarifying questions, give their feedback. So it's just kind of like a steamrolled networking session, really. And what I found really fascinating is one of the people in my little breakout brought up how they're part of a organization. I believe they might have been a nonprofit. And they said that they were trying to mitigate some risk by taking everybody from 40 hours to 32 hours a week without the place imploding by a lack of production. And which I know some of you out there are probably like, give me a break. Unfortunately, nonprofits don't, have a lot of profits to play around with. So they have to try to figure things out in creative ways. And I love that this individual, when she said this, that the period on the sentence that she said had barely come out of her mouth when somebody in the group just said, cut out all meetings. Like that's the way to do it. Cut out all the meetings.
Hey, Uggos. Patrick and I constantly talk about our own mishaps and pains and really just about anything about our adulting lives and workplace. But we'd love to hear your questions for us. So what have you always wanted to ask Patrick and I, but just haven't done yet?
To do this, we'll need you to reach out to us. And you can do so by going to our Instagram @grosslycompetent or send us an email, grosslycompetent@gmail.com. We'll pick through and read off our favorites in an upcoming episode.
Now, did my company's leadership happen to be on that call? Because I'm going to say 32-hour work week sounds awesome. Well, I do. And let me clarify, 32 hours for 40 hours of pay is what I.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's what they were going with here. I think this was a cost savings thing in order to keep the organization afloat. But so I was really thinking about this. Like, obviously I laughed at it. Like, yeah, it's a good joke. We all agree. Meetings are a bit ridiculous. I think that's like a real crisis though, man. Like there are just too many meetings and sometimes they are masqueraded as these educational opportunities. And I think I speak on behalf of all corporate infrastructure in the world when I say meetings for the sake of having a meeting suck. Like they do. They're just, what a giant waste of time. So what I kind of want to start things off with, Patrick, is how do you, like, I'm curious on your take on this. How do you help leaders or stakeholders, whatever you want to call them, how do you work with them to know when something's a training or if it's just a meeting or this should have been an email or a Google Doc?
Yeah, I've definitely been there in the past. Fortunately in my current role, I luckily do not get sucked into more meetings than necessary, but I do know what that is like from past. To answer your question, I would let people leaders know that they need to figure out what the purpose is. So what are they trying to accomplish? So for example, my team has a training request form that we mandate gets filled out.
But you've mentioned that.
Yeah,
that's right.
So by requesting teams or departments, so it helps. One, it's a good paper trail, but two, it helps us, it helps us figure out what those departments are really asking for and helps them see what it is they think that they need. So
got it.
Once we get an idea of why they're requesting this and what they're requesting exactly, we'll then set up a virtual meeting to make sure we're in alignment with what they are asking. So it's just those clarification, because you can type stuff out, but then when it really gets to it and and in a virtual meeting, like, okay, what's the issue here?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it ends up being a conversation of this may be better as an e-learning versus an instructor-led training. So this just happened a few weeks ago. A department requested 13 different topics that they wanted. It was a huge request, a large department.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to whittle that down to 6.
Oh, that's
and
that's huge.
Because we were able to group a few together to say this is going to fit under this one topic you requested. That's not a 2-hour training. That's like a 15-minute e-learning, right? So those type of conversations, and then those 3 trainings you requested, we can do that in a full 2-hour session. That's great, yeah. And so you just have those conversations that way. Sometimes before we even meet, we already know that this team or department needs some coaching from maybe the executive level or their managers, and where it might be an instance where training isn't going to fix the problem.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I know you've mentioned the idea of having that form. What I really like about it, well, there's multiple things I really enjoy about it. I like that you're putting the individual in the driver's seat of establishing, what do you want? Like what is star pie in the sky, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, what is it that you would like? And sometimes it's just a procedural change. Well, I want people to do that this way. Okay, that's an e-learning or like a very simple how-to structure or something like that. If it's soft skills or some form of leadership development, you're talking about a completely different entity. We can have that conversation. Yeah. So I really like that form. I've told myself that I need to implement that at my work. I think that would be such a valuable tool.
It is really helpful. One, we have it automated. So when someone fills it out and completes it, it kicks an email over to our team.
Oh, nice.
And so we all then are able to go check the Google sheet that we loaded on. So all that information's there. The questions are great. It's obviously the basic info of name, department. It's, does this training exist? What you're requesting. So, and we say that because do we already have it in our catalog? We want to know if it's something that we need to, are we going to maybe have to create something new, or is this something that already exists? And then what's the estimated size of, the group that you need? And then what's the urgency? So our department has my team has essentially a 30 or 60 day window. So for example, if it is something that we've already created, we already have it in our course catalog, we'll say, okay, we can schedule that 30 days out.
Oh, cool.
Right. If it's something that my team actually needs to develop on whole new presentation, whatever, we're going to need probably 60 days to get that, up to speed. So yeah, I'll definitely have to share that with you off the line. And
no, that sounds awesome. Yeah. It's been something that I've told myself like, oh yeah, I need to do something like that. Because I kind of hearkening back to the original premise, and that is, I think with Outlook or Google Calendar, whatever platform you're using, it is so easy just to make a little half an hour or an hour long little meeting and think that's going to solve all your problems.
Yeah.
However, and I'm curious if you run into this, because I know I have, where you'll have an hour block on your schedule. Great. Okay, I have this meeting I need to go to. Great. And depending if it's you're remote or if you're physically on premise, you go to said meeting. It's probably worse if you're actually physically walking to this place. You sit down and the meeting lasts like 6 minutes. Because the individual that set it up didn't really have a strategy or a plan. They just want to be like, hey, heads up. That is one of those moments of, this should have been an email, and there's really no reason otherwise that you should have done this.
That would drive me nuts if it was like that much of a waste, or even if it's you schedule an hour and you're only going 15 minutes. It's
yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're taking away people's time from, yes, if they're virtual, they can go back to whatever they were doing before, but maybe there was something else pressing that they had to reschedule or couldn't get scheduled because they had this other meeting on the calendar.
Well,
Super unfortunate.
you raise a really interesting point, and I'm going to see if I can't find the actual stats, but there is a real number associated with like the time that it takes somebody to refocus after being interrupted. Like when you start to add that up over time, that becomes a bigger deal than most people honestly realize. So that, yes, you had an hour-long meeting and it really only lasted 10, 15 minutes. On its face, that sounds like Christmas land. Like, I'd have to be a part of that thing for an hour. Awesome. But then you get off of it and you're starting to kind of like, you need to get back into that groove. I don't know what better way to put it, but you need to kind of get back into that flow state, perhaps, of, okay, this is where I was. And let's say that takes you, I don't know, 5 minutes to kind of like hit your stride back again. That might not seem like much, but over the course of, say, a week, 2 weeks, a month, that could be, I don't know, anywhere to an hour to 3 hours, depending upon what your schedule looks like. Those are real numbers. Those are real lost production numbers that I think really goes unrecognized when you have this kind of abuse of the schedule, if you will.
That's exactly what they talk about in that Stolen Focus book too.
No way. Seriously?
Oh, I'm serious. It's early.
Oh my God. Awesome.
I'm picturing where in the book that is. It's early on, but he mentions that the average, now get this, the average adult can focus for 3 minutes. And so that's just think though. So you like kind of come up with a scenario here. I'm working on a PowerPoint for 3 minutes, right? And then I get distracted by my phone. And so I might be on my phone. So this is very, very in line with what you were saying, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I get distracted on my phone for, let's say, 5 minutes. Okay. That's not, and then I don't just go back to the PowerPoint because now I've wasted 5 minutes doom scrolling. I go back to my PowerPoint and I think, oh, where was I?
Yes.
I've not only that, I've lost my train of thought. I have to get refocused and kind of just programmed into what I was doing. So it's not just the 8 minute where I was working for 3 and distracted for 5. It adds up over time. Then you get up and do something else. And it's, why did I leave the room? Where did I go? And yeah, that's a huge deal.
That is so funny that was in the book you were just talking about earlier. Folks, I promise you, this was not set up, like not at all, as a matter of fact. So that just even makes it wilder that that's the circumstance. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh, that's so cool.
I'll have to find that part of the book and get that info to you. It was really fascinating.
Well, I genuinely think I'm just going to order it and read it. I think that sounds really awesome. My to-do list for reading is just getting longer and I'm not knocking any off. If I need to really work on that.
Well, if you need help, I can tell you where Waldo is.
Oh God,
Page.
Don't even get me started. That guy, like, does he not have other clothes? Does he not?
Well, the thing that helps is knowing what he looks like.
That's true. That is true.
It makes those books a lot harder if you don't know who he looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'm always like, okay, so he just has a blurry face, right?
He's got a mask on. That's the problem. Waldo is an honorary uggo.
He is. He really is. He is definitely part of the ugly club in his own way. He's not a looker. I'm sorry, guys. Not a looker. And he is anti-me because he's all about being the most crowded places on the planet.
Oh, you know what? They need to do a Where's Waldo and Bucky's at 10 a.m. on a Saturday.
Oh my, without a doubt, that would be a gangbuster seller. Speaking of not focusing, that's exactly what we just did. Oh my God. Talk about real time.
Yeah, I have go ahead. Question then. So we talked about, obviously, this thing is like, this should have been an email, but I'm curious to ask you, and I'll go on a little tangent for a second, but I want to just talk about the idea of the different modes of communication that we have. So you have a meeting, you have emails, you have direct instant message or Teams, whatever your company uses. But when do you figure out, or when do you know, Steve, when it's time to pick up the phone or to send a quick text or to just email?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
All right. So my kind of philosophy on that is if it's something that I feel like I need a paper trail on, like, ooh, I'm going to need to know that information for a later time. I like email. I like email in that sense. If it's something like I'm working on something and I need to know like a specific figure or a number that's just like, I need it for this 1 second, that is a phone call. Like, hey, do you happen to know this? Cool. Thanks. Click. And then I just go ahead and do it. Like short, sweet, to the point. As you said, there's a time and a place for all of it. Weirdly enough, I really am a big fan of like the instant message, like Teams and that kind of stuff. Where I'm currently at, we do not employ it. And I find it really fascinating because it's a game changer. So it's almost been an odd regression on my behalf. I'm so used to having it. So now that they don't, I've kind of had to learn to pivot and utilize different functions.
Is your employer, are they in black or white, or is it color?
So the thing is, like, we actually have Teams. Like, we have it. It's on our computer, and like we have it. We just don't use it. It's really, and this is so embarrassing. I found that out the hard way because for like the first month that I was working there, I was sending people messages on Teams, and then like, what the heck? Why is nobody responding to me? Yeah, it's because nobody opens it. Like, nope, don't even bother opening it. It just was so, oh, got it. Duly noted, I guess.
I would love that they just like let you keep doing that. Like, why has no one talked to me?
Well, I genuinely can't remember like the very specific nature of like one of these messages, but it was somebody I work like very closely with. I'm like, hey, do you know what this is? They're like, oh yeah, it's right here. And like they just like turned around and gave it to me. I'm like, dude, why didn't I ask for that like a month ago, man? Like, what the heck? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I sent you a Teams message. And he just busts out laughing. He's like, yeah, I never opened that.
What?
You're killing me.
That's so like archaic. My goodness.
I don't know. Yeah. It stinks because how else am I supposed to write like song lyrics when I'm feeling down and have it as my away message? Right?
Well, Steve, I'll tell you that, at my employer, in my department, each division, we do things differently. But my team, especially the team of 5 of us, we're very good about figuring out if something needs to be an email, a Teams message, or a quick call. Just again, calling to clarify something specific.
Mm-hmm.
We each have our own preference at what we prefer. But occasionally we're able to say, hey, let's get on a call and hash things out if it's something that we know there's a little bit of confusion on.
Sure.
This probably goes without saying, but those Teams or whatever platform you use, maybe not your organization, instant message, whatever, those shouldn't be paragraph length conversations.
Sure.
Right? Those are just quick little hits. They should be quick hits, questions, comments, or GIFs like my team uses every day, just to keep things kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I think those are for like those quick little, hey, can you take care of this for me real quick? Or is this program working for you? Just as an example. But email is used for further explanation. To make an announcement, and I'm going to take what you said before, a paper trail of requests, conversations, etc. Mm-hmm. Then that phone call is really making sure the message gets across, to ask maybe a clarifying question, as I mentioned before, so that things don't get misconstrued over that text or email. Because again, the tone, you're not going to be able to tell over email. Or to give your 2-week notice.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't do that. Yeah. Don't text that out. I do love a good like whether it's Reddit post or something like that of somebody. The most recent one that comes to mind is somebody took a screenshot on their phone of saying like, yeah, I'm not going to work this day. I think I'm just going to quit. Like, and I'm paraphrasing this. And like, obviously the manager, whoever is like, it is professional to give a 2-week notice. And the guy responds like, you're lucky you even got a text. I think we've all been a part of an organization where like, you're lucky I was even nice and told you. Like,
that is good.
I thought that was so funny. Like, well played, sir. Whether it's fake or whatever, I don't know. It made me laugh. That's awesome. Yeah, I completely appreciate the way you break those down. Like, you could say that instant message is kind of in the similar ballpark as sending somebody a text message. It shouldn't be this like long drawn out thing. If you really needed that, shoot a phone call. And this is coming from somebody that sends long drawn out text messages from time to time, because sometimes I can't say the things I want to out loud. I need to say them in writing, because if I say them out loud, people will hear that and they're going to go,
why say many words when I always screw up the Kevin from The Office, but it's like,
yeah. Why say many words when less word do or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yes. I haven't learned that skill set when it comes to text. I haven't. The amount of people that I send text to, they're always like, I don't like that you add punctuation. Sorry, that's the way I is.
a run-on sentence or what?
That I don't know. They feel threatened by it. They feel like they're being judged when they don't do it, when really I don't care.
Well,
just don't.
I want to add to this. Some of you that are listening, I'm generally interested, would love to hear from people from this, but a lot of people listening might be thinking, well, yeah, this is kind of like common sense, but I would argue that it's not.
No,
It's just because of going back to the aforementioned bridging the generational gap that I've talked about multiple times on here before. Different generations have different communication styles and ways to going about things. And so it's different across the board. And some people that are newer to texting or to messaging on their laptops, it's different than just sending the email and picking up the phone and calling. So I think it is really important to talk about this. We talk about this in training all the time of like email etiquette. And some people are like, oh my gosh, people don't know this. I'm like, no, they don't. You'd be surprised.
You're absolutely right. And with email etiquette, when you're on a email with many other people, please do not reply all. Don't reply all. Just please don't. Don't do it. It's the worst. I don't need to hear your response. I don't care. Please don't do it.
I feel like we talked about that before, because what I do is if I am emailing a large group, and there's times where I don't have to use a lot, but there's times where you are emailing a bunch of different people or different maybe group. They're categorized into a email group where you put them in the 2 box. But most of the time when at my organization, when I'm emailing a bunch of people, I BCC that thing like no other, because they're going to just see it go to them, and there's no way they can reply all because there's no one to reply all to.
That's a great point.
So
yeah,
that's what I do. But there's times where you can't, or it's better to make sure you know who else is on the email.
Yeah, that's where I always get hung up, because if I'm including somebody on there, I'm okay with other people seeing like, oh, these other folks are on the same informational level that I am. So you take it as you will. That's fine. It's funny because we originally started talking about meetings, and we've kind of curtailed into this like communications messaging kind of thing. But something that comes to my mind is that we can almost look at this like a hierarchy, right? Where you have your instant message / even a phone call. I'd kind of put them maybe in the same category of like, you just need a quick bit of information fast. Like, hey, do you have this? Great, wonderful, we can move on. An email is something that's a bit more formalized and has procedure to it and follow-up material. A meeting goes above that. And that is like, we need to talk through this content.
Yeah.
Like I think that there should be that hierarchy that maybe it starts as an email just to say, hey, we're looking to do this. And we gauge some understanding. And if we're getting some feedback of this person thinks this and this person thinks this, that's time to say, hey, why don't we spend a half an hour? We sit in the same room or do a Teams meeting, something like that, and we can hash it out. So everybody is on the same page and we can all say, I'm on board. I understand. And we can move forward.
Definitely. It's almost like it can be a planning session too, even if it's just an hour, right? You can't do that back and forth on an email. It just doesn't work. You need to have people be able to vocally and verbally speak in a meeting versus just typing it out in an email. And it's a good way for that back and forth. And I think that's definitely more powerful than, the alternative for sure. So I think the examples that we give there are like, these are definitely those in-person meetings and the importance of those.
Yes.
Where we started with talking about a 6-minute meeting scheduled for an hour. And then you're going to get the people who go, oh, I guess I'm going to give you 54 minutes back of your day.
You know, right? You're not though. And we actually already covered that. Like there's a hidden cost. You're right that yes, you technically gave me back 54 minutes, but it's really like, I know you're remote, Patrick.
Yeah.
I am 100% on site. And where I work, it's a big campus. So if I need to get from point A to point B, sometimes it can take me a 10-minute walk. Like that's not unheard of. So in the summer and spring and stuff, it's fantastic. Like I love that. But I will tell you right now that if you schedule me for an hour, I come to your meeting, I walk across campus, I go into your meeting and it lasts, 8-10 minutes, something like that. And now I'm trudging back. I'm annoyed. And I am definitely saying some things about you and your ability to plan a meeting. Like that's ridiculous. No, have a strategy, have a plan. And if your strategy or plan can be summarized nicely in an email, my God, please do that and save the world from another pointless meeting. Please.
Exactly. And you can tell that and Steve, you're fortunate because you can tell them off as much as you want out of Teams because they're never going to read it.
I will write a strongly worded Teams message.
That'll be in the ether.
It sure will. God, it'll be a year before somebody's like, wait a minute, what are these messages here?
Oh, here we go. It was a joke. Don't worry about it.
Who's this guy? Oh, good Lord. Yeah. No. Patrick, do you know whose meetings should never be an email?
Spinnerooski.
Dang right, it's the Spinnerooski. It is indeed, folks. While my co-host fires up the wheel, a very, very wooden wheel, may I add. A reminder for all of you listeners out there, each episode we spin the Spinnerooski. It's a wheel of names that might belong, hopefully, to the woman who so generously shoved Mr. Patrick and I into the Ugly Club all those years ago. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I highly recommend circling back to our original episode, The Story of Us, where we talk about that. The goal of this is that eventually we'll land on her name so we can thank her properly. Patrick, are we ready to do the Roosk?
Let's do it. Let me
Spin that Rooski.
Oh, it's heavy today. Wooden wheel. Ah, there.
Shook.
Claire.
Oh, Claire. Oh, my gosh, Claire. I used to work with a Claire. She was very pleasant. she's not the one that pushed us into the ugly club, though. She's far too young to have done that. But Claire, that I think could very well be the name of the woman that did push us into the ugly club, though, because that's a pretty common name, Claire.
Right. Yeah. You'd think so, that we've got to be getting close.
We have to be.
I mean, we're already with this is spin number 32, I believe, 31, something like that.
Yeah. Ooh, this would be 32 because remember the doubler that we had?
Oh, good call.
Yeah, Hannah and Miley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. May we never forget. Well, Claire, thank you so much. Thank you for living rent-free in our heads. Thank you for all that you have given Patrick and I. Without your push, we wouldn't be here right now. So thank you so very much.
Hey, Steve, should we do some shout outs?
Yeah, brah, we totally should. Do you have any? Oh, you want me to start? I'll start us off. My shout out is going to go to Jen Marr. And if you're not familiar, I'm going to put her info in the show notes. She is amazing. I had the distinct pleasure of meeting her in person less than a week ago. She and I are doing the Disrupt HR event in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, coming up at the end of this month. And I'm going to go on the record right now. She is an absolute delight, but I think she doesn't give herself enough credit because she is going to be a formidable speaker. She is going to crush it. If it interests anybody out there, she actually has 2 books. I don't know if you know what that feels like to meet somebody for the first time and you're like, hey, I get to share a stage with you. How cool is that? And she's like, yeah, I think I'm going to take some information from one of my 2 books I've written. I'm like, yeah. So I do a podcast where I talk about how ugly I am. Like, do you have any idea how out of my depth I am on that? Like, God. So she told me about her 2 books, Showing Up and Lifting Up. And I already said I was going to add them to my reading arsenal. So now I'm just like compiling books. I feel like I'm that kid that has like this stack of books at the library and I'm going to set them on a counter. And then once my time's up, I'm just going to hand them back to the library and pretend I read them. But folks, I'm going to pop her contact info in the show notes. If you decide to venture down that pathway and get in touch with her, please make sure you say, Steve says hi. She is wonderful. I can't talk about it enough how wonderful of a person she is.
That is amazing. I will shout out those managers that host and hold a meeting that ends about a minute or 2 early. That's a perfect amount of time. It's 30 minutes or it's an hour and you end it like a minute or 2 early. That
is awesome.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah. There's an acronym. Always
leave early.
ALE. Oh my God. How did I not remember that? Always leave early. Today I had a training I did that was for 3 hours and everybody got out, I think 15 minutes early. So I gave them 15 minutes of their time back. Whoa. No. And you know, what's funny is I feel like when I do that, people usually just linger around anyway, just to chat. I'm always like, sure, that's awesome. Like, I don't know. I love that. That's besides the point. I think that does it, man. Unless, is there anything I'm missing?
I think we got it all.
That sounds awesome. Folks, we love you. That's it for this episode. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Ugly. Oh, God. Boom, yeah. Please don't copyright us.
That's a great ending. This whole thing could have been an email. That's what they're saying on our podcast.
I hope not. God damn, dude.
Oh, man.